We were surprised to discover the most common and dangerous eating disorder in America is also the least well known. It's called EDNOS. More deadly than anorexia or bulimia, it affects millions of people, primarily women across the country, yet remains tragically under the radar. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain thanks to two young women who allowed me this intimate look inside their most private battles.
Taylor says she wants to like herself.
Looking at myself, I don't like the way I look at all.
But she can't turn off the voice inside her head that tells her she's not good enough, not perfect.
It's hard to distinguish sometimes what's Ed talking and what's Taylor talking.
Ed, ED, her nickname for her eating disorder.
They were like, okay, you have EDNOS. And I was like, well, what is that?
EDNOS stands for eating disorder not otherwise specified. It encompasses a wide variety of behaviors included in anorexia and bulimia, including binging, purging, restricting, and overexercising. But in EDNOS, sufferers often don't meet the highly defined criteria for those diagnoses, which doesn't mean they aren't truly sick.
It's still a misperception out there that these are relatively benign sort of disorders, sort of diet's gone bad. These are life-threatening, serious illnesses. They have the highest mortality rate of any psychiatric diagnosis.
Not only that, a vast number of people, at least 12 million, mostly women, have the illness. Women like Taylor. Taylor's eating disorder began 8 years ago when she was 12, though the pressure to be thin started long before that.
I remember once when I was 6, I went to the doctor asking why my thighs were bigger than my friends.
She had been secretly binging, purging, and restricting all through high school, keeping up on her dance team, but feeling fat.
Have you ever liked the way you look?
No, not that I ever remember.
It wasn't that Taylor was losing too much weight, it's that Taylor was on a roller coaster, eating too much or too little, and destroying her health in the process.
When we have lunch, I just throw it away. Then when my parents started noticing, I kind of switched my symptom use a little bit to more like the binging, purging.
Didn't they hear you throwing up?
I would only do it when they weren't here.
But it was when she got to college things really went into crisis mode.
5, 6, 7.
Here, front and center on her college dance team, until EDNOS sidelined her.
I think I realized that I was really sick, that I had to quit my team because I was collapsing during practices.
And she realized she needed help. Taylor ended up here at the Renfrew Center, a renowned eating disorder program. We first met her 6 months ago.
Thank you.
At Renfrew, the first shock for Taylor, the numbers that ruled her life, are not allowed.
I would weigh myself 7 to 14 times a day.
No calorie counting, no scales, and no talk of pounds, says Dr. Douglas Bunnell, the vice president of Renfrew.
We really have to help people change their eating, get their brains back online, get their bodies back to a place of being healthy and functioning, regularly, and then the psychological work can really start to take root.
The first thing Renfrew requires is that Taylor eat. At first, just a balanced meal at regular times. That was hard enough. But soon she had to face her fear foods, foods she either had forbidden herself from eating at all or had binged on, or both. Spaghetti is one of them. It's hard.
My stomach's very full, my chest is tight. I feel like I want to cry.
Each meal is monitored by a therapist and must be eaten within an hour.
I struggled with the idea of this idea of having an eating disorder. I didn't fit. I was not anorexic, I was not bulimic, so I don't have an eating disorder.
At Renfrew, we met another young woman, also battling EDNOS, 23-year-old Allie. Unlike Taylor, for Allie, once an Ivy League softball pitcher, it wasn't about losing weight, it was about regaining her strength. When a shoulder injury sidelined her, she became obsessed with getting back on the field.
I had this idea that somehow, if I controlled what I ate, I could never get hurt again.
She says she restricted to superfoods, or so-called clean foods.
It's this idea of strict, rigid food rules. It was planning every single meal, portioning, measuring, so that I had just not too much, not too little.
She just wanted to be alone.
I did an excellent job of isolating and pushing my friends away.
She stopped dating, She worked out constantly. In 13 months, she lost 75 pounds. Not only was Allie not back on the field, she stopped menstruating, lost her ability to concentrate, was always cold, and had night sweats.
I was just scared. I didn't know what was happening.
For Allie, it's time for meal support therapy. She's a few weeks into treatment, and things are going better.
How are you feeling physically and emotionally?
Physically, I feel like satisfied, and emotionally, I feel good that I was able to eat slowly, enjoy the food.
Bon appetit.
When we checked back in with Taylor 4 weeks after her struggle to eat pasta, we arrived on pizza day.
Pizza is a challenge for me.
Ed is still buzzing in her head.
Sitting with your empty plate is hard?
Because then you just look at it and, like, you're thinking, I just ate all of that.
Taylor's therapist tries to get her to talk about how she's feeling.
So how was your meal?
And suddenly, all the pain comes bubbling out.
It was really hard.
Okay.
The last time I ate pizza, I tried it at home, I think this whole summer only a couple times, but I had panic attacks. I didn't have that much anxiety coming into it, but then once I saw it all on the plate, and then just seeing it now, I don't feel good.
Some of the things that you all are having these young women eat seem unhealthy. Chinese food, fast food even, pizza.
Our goal is not to have them choose to eat pizza in perpetuity. Our goal is to help them learn the skills they can use to deal with challenging situations and generalize from that.
After months of treatment, both Allie and Taylor graduate from the Renfrew program, which does not mean life is easy. Even the simple act of shopping for food is still stressful for Taylor.
When we fill up the cart, I'll have a panic attack in the middle of the grocery store.
Would you say you can cure people of eating disorders?
I think people can fully recover from these disorders, but it often takes quite a while. The actual recovery rates at the end of the treatment are somewhere between 50 and 60%, and that's a little generous.
As for Allie, she is making great strides. Aware that her eating disorder is still a part of her life, she has returned to her first love, softball, teaching young girls.
But I still know there's a ways to go, and to fool yourself into thinking you're not going to have setbacks is setting yourself up to relapse.
A 1 and 2.
Taylor returned to college this fall and is now captain of the dance team.
Eventually I'll be totally 100% okay and all the thoughts are gone. I'm still working towards that.
Ed, she says, is speaking a little more quietly.
For more information on helping those with EDNOS, visit abcnews.com/nightline.